Everybody has to admit, The Lord of the Rings starts very, very slowly. There's like a kind of ditch or dike that you have to cross before you get to the interesting parts. And admittedly, for many readers, it takes a long time to get going. It is famously got a structure where it moves back and forth between tension and release, a kind of rocking horse or seesaw motion. Scary, relax. And there's a lot of relaxing here. The tension slackens a lot. Also, generally speaking, and other critics, including Abigail Newsbaum, have talked about this, the structure of The Lord of the Rings is moving from one more or less banal set of fantasies to progressively deeper, more profound, stranger fantasies and visions. I would add to that, I would add to Nussbaum myself that after the Fellowship of the Ring, it diverges where one group of characters is going to kind of shinier and shinier fantasies, and the other set of characters, Frodo and Sam, are going to darker and darker visions of reality. There's also so it takes a while to pick up. The danger is kept at bay a little bit and is at bay a lot. It takes a while to get going. There is this gradual progress to deeper and deeper visions of fantasy, or what Tolkien would imagine is deeper visions of an underlying reality to deeper truths. The world, Tolkien feels, is really like this deep down on a spiritual level. There's also the problem of the opening itself, where we start with this prologue, this allegedly non-fiction prologue. The only entertaining thing about it is the part when in the second volume one of the characters will start spouting sentences from that, and he's being obviously a pedantic bore when that happens. And then there's a little note on the Shire records, and then there's that first chapter which is so different from all the other chapters, and the second chapter which is important but also a major info dump. One of the things that's happening here, though admittedly only one of the things, is Tolkien has a specific technical challenge. He is writing an adult sequel to his children's book, The Hobbit. He has got to get the readers on board with the fact that this book, though it shares characters and it follows along from events in that earlier children's story, is not for children in any way. That fun, entertaining magic ring that funny old Bilbo found in The Hobbit is in fact a terrifying thing, that will eat your soul. It's very, very bad. And he needs to make this accessible to people who haven't read The Hobbit at all. Okay, the prologue. You have my permission as your instructor not to read the prologue or only to read the parts that are useful to you. I do not give such permission often or lightly. That prologue has four sections. One is about hobbits generally. If you don't have any idea what a hobbit is, go ahead. There's one about the Shire. There's one about pipeweed. That is the most must skip. Here's what's happening. In this fantasy world that is set long, long ago, there is already tobacco. And Tolkien cannot imagine a world without tobacco. Fine. And then there's a thing called the finding. Part four of the prologue is called the finding of the ring. And okay, that is if you don't know anything about what happened in The Hobbit, reading through that part four of the prologue will get you up to speed. It will also be covered in The Shadow of the Past. Then we have then we have the little note on the Shire records. You do not have permission to skip that. That is weird. It is maybe wrong-headed, but it is something Tolkien is committed to. Tolkien there introduces the fiction that this whole book is an actual medieval manuscript, the Red Book of Westmarch, which he has, or its textual sense, which he has edited and translated. He gives it the kind of apparatus you actually get in a scholarly edition of a medieval manuscript. Like, oh yeah, this is a handwritten copy, okay? So like, and we find out about where it comes from. If you read that, it is full of spoilers, deliberate spoilers. You will note, you will note from the Note and Shire records, a number of characters who are definitely going to make it to the end of the trilogy. The book counts on you forgetting. There will be end of books, by which I mean not volumes, but the 6 sections the 3 volumes are based into. There are end of volume of books cliffhangers that count on you having forgotten that little note. Read it. He's decided to tell you right away that a bunch of these people are going to make it and thrive and have descendants and even fancy titles. That's Master Samwise to you, Buckaroo. Then we get that first chapter. I will talk more about the Shadow of the Past, which is an important chapter and really where the story gets going. We have the first chapter called "A Long Awaited Party." It is in some ways it is which is a vision of the Shire as this. Let me talk about the Shire, which is full of would be dry, light humor. Very few people, very few people read Tolkien for the poetry. Even fewer read him for the jokes. As one of the first important reviews of this book by the poet W.H. Auden said, comedy is not that kind of humor that he's doing in the first chapter is not Tolkien's forte. That is not his thing. He's doing these jokes he's not good at, that he will never do it again. The tone of this chapter is unlike anything before or anything like after. It's a kind of transition. It's a kind of transition to from between the tone of the children's book and the tone of the adult book. And it might not work, but it is an attempt to deal with a problem. The title, A Long Expected Party, is a callback to the first chapter title of The Hobbit, An Unexpected Party, where a whole bunch of dwarves and a wizard crash Bilbo's crib. Um, and, this is not all great. I want to point out what the Shire is like. The heavy-handed humor is not great. Like we spend much too long where Bilbo gives mean gag gifts to his relatives. Why you gotta be like that, Bilbo? Come on. And if you think it's funny, great. It is attempting to do the kind of some critics, including Abigail Nussbaum, have talked about how it's trying to do something like Jane Austen. I will also point out that two things about the Shire itself. The Shire, is well known, is a vision of kind of an idealized vision of a rural England that never quite existed. Shire is the name for the divisions of England. It's separated up into shires, aka counties. And the people in the Shire, it's like they call it the Shire because they can't imagine any other one. They're that parochial. And the people here, the hobbits, are parochial. They're a vision of kind of little England, and they all have lovable foibles, and that's it. It has never been like that. I'd also point out for the record separately, they have waistcoats. They have umbrellas. This is a fantasy, but it's a fantasy of a kind of modern thing. Like, what year is it, more or less, over in the Shire? Don't count the Shire reckon. Like, what year in English history is that? It's the late 1700s, it's the early 1800s, or it's the early 1800s, but without the factories and mills yet? An idyllic pre-technological England? Okay. This is a fantasy. It has never been like this, but it starts with this comfortable fantasy of Little England and moves out to darker and brighter places that Tolkien feels are more profound. I will also say the moment for me, and you should always look, don't go for general plot stuff. Look for passages. If I had to talk about a passage in chapter one where things kick into gear, I would go with this one in this old edition. It's page 57 of chapter one. Here is Bilbo having pulled a disappearing act with his dangerous magic ring. He walked briskly back to his hole, and stood for a moment listening with a smile to the din in the pavilion and to the sounds of merrymaking in other parts of the field. Then he went in. He took off his party clothes, folded up and wrapped in tissue paper his embroidered silk waistcoat, and put it away. Then he put on quickly some old untidy garments and fashioned round his waist a worn leather belt. On it he hung a short sword and a battered black leather scabbard. From a locked drawer smelling of mothballs, he took out an old cloak and hood. They had been locked up as if they were very precious, but they were so patched and weather beaten and weather stained that their original color could hardly be guessed. It might have been dark green. They were rather too large for him. He then went into his study and from a large strong box took out a bundle wrapped in old cloths and a leather-bound manuscript, and also a large bulky envelope. The book and bundle he stuffed into the top of a heavy bag that was standing there, already nearly full. Into the envelope he slipped his golden ring and its fine chain, and then sealed it and addressed it to Frodo. At first he put it on the mantelpiece, but suddenly he removed it and stuck it in his pocket. At that moment the door opened, and Gandalf came quickly in. Okay, a bunch of things are happening there. Here is Tolkien doing characterization sheerly by action. We just watch what Bilbo does, and Bilbo does peculiar stuff. He at first he's listening to din. He's listening to the din in the pavilion, i.e., the commotion of all his frustrated and alarmed relatives, the commotion he has made, and he's enjoying that, and enjoying the merrymaking in the other parts of the field. He's enjoying that the rest of his guests are having a good time. He does enjoy that. He's enjoying that he freaked out that 144 in the main tent. He's put the cat among the pigeons, and he's not above that. Okay, he is both of those things. He has, again, a waistcoat. If the rest of the book takes place in something that's like the early Middle Ages, by which I mean the 3-digit AD, or deep in the BC, deep in the world of the classics, this is somebody that he's got that waistcoat, right? Everybody else is like barely got iron weapons, and he's got a waistcoat, but they don't go together. Um, he drinks tea, right? Like, how does he get tea without the modern world? He Bilbo stops, and we see the character through action. The rest of this chapter has been tedious, at least to me, partly because it's telling us how to feel about all the auxiliary hobbits. Show don't tell is an overrated piece of writing advice, but when it comes to telling the reader how to feel, it is very good advice. Being told how to feel about a character is a drag. Being shown something that helps us make up our own mind about the character is useful. That's how you do it. That's how you get the reader on board. Here we're being just shown Bilbo in action, and Bilbo is full of contradictions. He likes messing with his relatives' minds. He likes giving his guests a good party, both of those things. He wraps up his waistcoat and puts it in tissue paper, like the good little hobbit bourgeois he is, which is even funnier because he ain't never coming back. He's about to walk out forever, but he still like puts the fancy clothes in the tissue paper. Don't want to ruin that. He is still that bourgeois little guy. um, and then he takes like his old traveling clothes, which we've seen him issued like back in The Hobbit. Um, the fact he keeps in a truck with mothballs. We've got that level of detail. Okay, yeah, you keeping your old traveling cloak in mothballs. They're too big for him because they're dwarf sized, not hobbit sized. They're just one of those, and he loves them. This is a man who loves a hobbit who absolutely can't wait to get his to get on his old beat up traveling clothes to go off, right? He's also, without making much fuss about it, he's thrown on a sword. Like, okay, our gag gift giving, party throwing, waistcoat wearing little man. So also he's is all business, right? He is both this boring stay at home guy and this adventurer who lives for the wild. He's both those things at once. and and then he gets the book, the bundle, and the ring. The ring is super important. The book, if we've paid attention to the Note of the Shire records, that's this book. That's the standing draft as it is at this moment at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. That's Bilbo's own diary. That's the beginning of the Red Book of Westmarch, which allegedly this whole book is taken of. He's carrying this book with him off on his travels. And there's a bundle, which is a bit of exposition. That bundle is left to be revealed early in book 2. Spoilers, we're going to see Bilbo again. Even in the Fellowship, we're going to see him one more time. And then, of course, we get the real exposition. He puts the ring in the envelope on the mantelpiece, then he puts it back in his pocket. What has he got in his pockets? Okay. This is storytelling through direct, dramatic depiction. We see the character, and he's weird enough, he's contradictory enough, he's worth watching. He's actually not a stereotype, or the fact he's stereotypical in some ways doesn't mean he's not unusual in other ways. It's a moment of characterization that's kind of a level ahead of everything else in this chapter.